And now we're going to turn to Colorado Democratic Senator Michael Bennet, who joins me now. Senator Bennet, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. I do want to start with the commission that we were just talking about with Secretary Hagel. We heard this morning, of course, from the D.C. Metro Police Officer Brian Fanone. He described his experience on January 6th. He was talking outside of Senator Collins' office this morning. I just want to show everybody what he said, and then we'll talk about it.
As an American, I'm here to advocate for the commission because I want to see Congress come together in a bipartisan fashion and really get to the bottom of January 6th. I think it's necessary for us to heal as a nation from the trauma that we all experienced that day.
So, Senator, the mother of Brian Sicknick, have been talking to these senators, and yet many of your Republican colleagues are going to go down to the Senate floor, we expect, later today, and vote to filibuster the commission. How do you explain that?
An utter lack of courage. I'm very, very grateful to Officer Sicknick's mother and to the other officers that have the reservoir of courage to come here and to say that, to insist that the country needs us to have this commission. And the fact that my colleagues are terrified of Donald Trump, who's down in Mar-a-Lago on the other end of the phone, is really pathetic. And that's the difference between having a commission and not having a commission. We had a commission after the Kennedy assassination, after 9/11, after the Challenger explosion. And we should have one here. I was standing not far from here the day this all happened on January 6th with all of my colleagues in a room in the Hart Building, and lining the walls of the room were television sets, and one after another was showing this mob, attacking the Capitol, overtaking the platform that had been set up for Joe Biden's peaceful transfer of power on January 20th. And all I could think about was what the rest of the world was thinking about. Like, what is China thinking about? What is Russia thinking about? Our adversaries, but also what are people like my mom and her parents who survived the Holocaust? What are people around the world thinking about whose only hope really is this country? And for us to not take a real look at what happened. This is the kind of thing that people in Russia or China expect. This should not be happening in our country.
Senator, what was the attitude of your Republican colleagues inside that room on that day? And knowing how they were acting and what they were saying then, what's changed?
Well, the attitude, there was a very isolated few who contributed to that day, who were sitting off to themselves at a table. But the rest of the folks, their attitude was exactly the same as the Democrats, which is we need to get back on the floor and do our job. We can't wait a day. We have to get back there tonight so the world can see that this democracy is intact.
So that they just forgotten about that?
Yeah, I think they've I don't think they've forgotten about it. I think they've, become paralyzed by Donald Trump once again. It's a very, very sad day. There were people in that room that day who were saying they would never forgive Donald Trump for what he had done. And now, they're caving to him.
Yeah, I remember Lindsey Graham going to the floor after that scene.
Yeah, where
he's enough.
Yeah, enough is enough. I'm at an end. This is the end. And now, he's the cheerleader for Donald Trump running for president again. And by the way, that's another piece of this that people need to remember. The insurrection is still going on. Donald Trump still refuses to say that Joe Biden's the legitimate president. You've got people on Capitol Hill who refuse to say that Joe Biden is the president. And
Senator Johnson.
And why does that matter? It matters because there is a huge percentage of Republicans in the country who think that Joe Biden was not elected legitimately because of the lies they've been told by elected leaders in Washington, D.C., and by conspiracy theories that they've heard on the internet. That's the other reason this commission is so critically important. We have to restore some set of facts to this democracy of ours.
Senator Bennet, why do you think Mitch McConnell has seemed to change his mind so dramatically about this? He went back and forth. It was a long time we didn't know if he was potentially going to vote to impeach Donald Trump. He then went down and gave a scathing speech on the Senate floor, now is essentially leading the charge to stop this commission from happening. Why?
I think what Mitch McConnell said, among other things on the floor, was that Donald Trump bore the practical and moral responsibility for what happened on January 6th. But I wasn't surprised in the end that he voted the way he did, because you could see the gears turning in his head. No one hates Donald Trump more than Mitch McConnell, because Donald Trump helped cause the loss of Mitch McConnell's majority, and he hates him. And I think that if he could have convicted him and stayed leader of the Republican Party in the Senate, he would have done so. But he realized that if he voted to convict, he would lose that position, and he clearly would lose that position, because tragically, the National Republican Party continues to not be the normal conventional Republican Party, but it's Trump's party.